Christmas, and welcome to the Vicars Watch Dibley Nativity Special.
The podcast where real priests talk about pop culture and what we've learned about faith, life and the church. We've watched Dibley and now we're watching a nativity. I'm Kate.
I'm Ross.
And I'm Ruthie. And as already hinted, today we have watched a nativity. We watched the Goes Wrong show version of the nativity. We talk about the brilliant casting and everything that goes on with the Goes Wrong show. But then we also talk about the nativity itself, the nativity from the Bible, and how that has gone wrong. Well, a holy, happy hello.
Hello.
Hiya.
Hello. We're in our vicarages. You're listening in. We are ready and raring to talk about the Goes Wrong play of the Nativity. But first, let's start with some notices. Ross, kick it off.
I went back into the cathedral office where my desk is, and I told my workmate, Christine, all about what I'd been doing with you guys on the podcast. How we had proven that not only is Die Hard a Christmas movie, but it is in fact an adaptation of the Nativity. And she basically asked me to write up my argument so that she could send it on to her daughter and her friends who say that Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. And then the day after that, I saw my line manager, and she was, first of all, she was startled that I had never seen Die Hard.
Rightly so.
But then I read out what I had, what I'd written to her, and it was great fun. And we are converting people to the idea that Die Hard is a nativity.
Yeah, and I think it's inspired us slightly that maybe, if we find the time, we could work together on thinking about maybe doing some sort of Advent series, maybe not a podcast, but something which has film suggestions for each character.
Yeah, some kind of blog
story.
Or... Gosh,
Something.
maybe even a book one
Maybe
day,
even a
who
book,
knows?
my goodness. Would you
So
buy that?
all of this is copyrighted that we're talking about. And last time, don't steal our ideas.
Yeah, what we said about, hey, here's a great sermon resource, actually back off, it's ours. Not at all.
Oh.
You're very welcome. But yeah, it's just been great fun to take that idea and to
Well, I
josh
have
about
had
with it,
great
really.
fun this week as well, because I had my son's class from his school, which is reception year 1, year 2, come to church to talk about baptism, because they're doing initiation rites in different religions in RE. So they're talking about baptism. And so they all came along, and it was wonderfully chaotic. None of the kids knew what to call me, because sometimes they called me Benjamin's mum, sometimes they called me Revd Ruthie, sometimes they just call me Ruthie, sometimes they call me Miss. One of them called me Reverend Mum, which I think that was my favourite one. And yeah, they came and they brought toy babies with them, and we talked about baptism, and then they had a go at baptising them. So I split them into groups, and one of them was the priest, one of them was a parent, one of them was a godparent, and then the extras got to be either another parent or godparent. And I got the kids to baptise the babies as part of it. They got to choose the name, so we had some very interesting names. But it was great fun, and I did have a conversation with a vicar friend the other day, and said, I'm doing this. I feel a bit weird about baptising the babies, though. And she was like, well, get them to do it. And I said, wow, that's genius. So, of course, it was my son who wanted to be the priest as well. So I've got a nice photo of me watching my 4-year-old baptise his first baby.
Did I ever tell you about how my eldest sibling, when my dad was training for ordination, my eldest sibling was used as the test baby
Yes, I remember.
for all the trainee priests?
Have a
for
practice.
baptisms. Have a practice. So, I mean, what I suppose, baptism is all about intention, you know. That's in a way what makes it different from just having a bath.
Oh.
But yes, I was also thinking about my dog. At a certain time of night, she allows herself to be cradled like a baby in my arms, and I was just thinking, oh,
No, don't
I could
baptise your
pretend
dog.
to baptise you.
No, Kate. No,
But actually,
that way heresy lies.
I won't do that, but I was thinking actually she has given me very good practice with holding a wiggly baby, the kind of in the baptism cradle, and I've noticed I have improved since I've been cradling my little dog, with holding them all wiggly.
Tuck an arm in the armpit.
I just don't hold the children.
That's the classic technique.
Mm.
But it depends on your font. Anyway, speaking of babies, let's head to talk about the Nativity. So, Russ, tell us about what we've watched this week.
Okay, so this week, dear listener, we have watched The Nativity Goes Wrong. You may or may not be familiar with the Goes Wrong series. It began as a theatre show by Mischief Theatre Company, in which they would present a show that goes wrong. And that was the name of their show, The Play That Goes Wrong. And the conceit within it is that the actors are playing a drama society, namely the Cornley Polytechnic Drama Society. And they're desperately trying to put on a play. But everything that can go wrong does go wrong in the classic British comedy slapstick tradition, with pratfalls and puns and misunderstandings and
sets falling apart.
Yeah.
Sets falling apart, costumes going awry, technology failures,
actors
fires,
forgetting their lines.
Actors not knowing their lines, forgetting their lines. It's, I mean, it's just brilliant, and it kind of captures British charm, I guess, almost from that sort of Fawlty Towers kind of idea. They turned it into a TV show. There are half-hour episodes that you can find on iPlayer. And there are a couple of ones that you will be more familiar with, perhaps. There was a really big Peter Pan Goes Wrong. There was... What else was there? There was another one, wasn't there? The Play Goes Wrong, Peter Pan Goes Wrong.
So, in terms of the play shows, they started with The Play That Goes Wrong. Then they did, I don't know the order of it, but then they had Peter Pan Goes Wrong, The Nativity Goes Wrong, and I think it's a play about a spy or something like that. But the Peter Pan Goes Wrong was the first one to be televised as the full play, and was so incredibly popular. It was televised on the BBC as a Christmas special, was so incredibly popular that it then, the following year, they did A Christmas Carol Goes Wrong. And then they were commissioned to do this show, which had 2 seasons, with, I think it's about 30-minute episodes, isn't it? With short plays, every episode.
And so we watched the Nativity episode.
Yeah,
which is about half an hour long from season 2, and it's just great fun.
It's hilarious. I was watching it with Nat. Nat was busy video gaming next to me, and I was like, "Oh, I'll just put my headphones in and watch it, so I don't disturb you." But of course, I massively disturbed her because I was laughing so much at bits of it, and despite having seen it before, it was a little while ago since I've seen it. Just like side-splittingly funny, and they do it with so much seriousness that they're, key actors, and this is important, and especially Chris, who is the director, and his passion and enthusiasm and wanting to get it right, and him just slowly losing his sanity as more and more things go wrong, is brilliant, and they play it in such a way that first of all, you genuinely think part of the set's fallen apart, and you're like, oh no, this is disaster. And then as it goes on, there's just more and more things. Brilliant. So good.
Did you have particular favourite moments, Kate?
Oh my goodness. I love the Halo Hello
moment
where where the character is playing the angel Gabriel is kind of duct taped to a cloud and he falls over, and then later he kind of drops his halo and he's trying to tell the other actors to pass him the halo, and they misunderstand and think he's telling them to say hello. And in many ways there's lots of moments which are callbacks to previous productions.
Yeah.
So him dropping the halo, his same character in Peter Pan Goes Wrong drops his hook and is trying to tell the same actor to pass him the hook, but he does it in a really thick pirate accent, so the other character doesn't understand. The hook! Give me the hook! It's so funny. And there's all these little callbacks throughout to the same sort of mistakes that keep happening. And what I just love is the narrative arc of the actor characters, which grows across the plays and across the seasons, and you sort of see all of their character traits and their flaws, but also their relationships between each other, and like competition between different characters, and which characters think they're the best actor.
Ross, what about your favourite moment?
My favourite moment, I really enjoyed Herod just getting spun around on the throne. Some kind of technical issue with
the like strip show, Ross?
Yes, that does happen on the throne, doesn't it, rather? That wasn't why I chose it. I just thought it was so ridiculous and wonderful. But also, there's the scene where they're singing Little Donkey, and the set design.
Oh, yeah.
The map is going behind them, and
paint more
and
desert, and I think it's dessert, and so paints a series of desserts.
Yeah.
Amazing. I have to say, probably my favourite bit is where they're round the piano singing the carol, and the music drops, and so they end up singing the carol to lots of different tunes. That was
very clever.
Hopes and fears.
Exactly. Ross, why don't you take us through the characters? So we've got actors playing actors who play characters. So take us through that.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the purposes of you, dear listener, I am not going to name the actors.
Yes.
The real people.
I'm not going to name the real people. I'm going to name the characters within the world of the show that goes wrong. So we have, for example, Chris Bean, who is the director and narrator. And he's kind of your Basil Fawlty.
Yes.
He's kind of your straight man who loses his insanity by the end.
Yeah.
Loses his sanity by the end, and is trying to control everything within an inch of his life.
And he thinks he's a very good actor. He thinks he's the best actor. He thinks he is, really, it's his kingdom, really, and he's the one in charge, and he has a power trip. And I mean, again, through the narrative of the show, he kind of has that power wrestled away from him, and there's some really good jokes around that.
Often
as well.
by Robert. Who's Robert, Ross?
Well, Robert plays Gabriel in the Nativity. He's the one who makes the halo joke. He also thinks he's the best actor.
Yes.
But does so in a very loud sort of a way.
Yes.
I mean, I've got a background in theatre. I know those actors who think that the best way to act is to be loud.
Yeah.
It's slightly Brian Blessed-like, isn't it?
Yeah, and in the fiction of the universe, he even has a book called Anything You Can Act, I Can Act Louder. And in one of the episodes, he does a masterclass on acting, which is really great, because if you then watch the episodes following that, you see how the other actors pick up his tips.
Oh, really?
Which is just,
amazing.
It's so
fun.
Oh, dear listeners, you have to watch. It's just
I
so
hope
good.
it's available
so
in the US on iPlayer. for everyone else in the US who are listening.
In terms of the nativity, we've got Joseph and Mary.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Joseph is played by Max, who I guess is something like maybe the court jester to the director's king, if you like. He's a bit of a bad actor. He keeps breaking the fourth wall whenever he gets a response from the audience.
Yeah.
When they laugh, you can just see how proud he is, and he looks out to them with a big grin on his face.
He's also the cute one.
He's adorable.
He's also the cute one.
He's the cute one.
And in when we first met him in Peter Pan Goes Wrong, we're told that the only reason he was cast is because his aunt is director of a BBC or something like that.
Right.
So, but he has a whole journey where he becomes a better kind of.
He's so wonderful in Peter Pan Goes Wrong.
Oh, yes.
He's the crocodile, and snap, snap.
And he saves the show, and he saves Wendy's life, and the crocodile and Wendy live happily ever after.
So I haven't watched Peter Pan Goes Wrong, but because I didn't think it was available, but you've now told me it's available, so I'm looking forward to watching it. And don't worry about spoilers because I'll go. Because there is a thing with Max and another actor, isn't there?
Yeah, who plays Mary?
So Mary is played by Sandra in our fictional Play Goes Wrong cast. And, I mean, Sandra is just really good at sort of flirting with the camera.
Yes.
And there's a bit of a thing between her and Max, isn't there? Like a will they, won't they kind of thing going on.
Well, no, because they actually get... their relationship I won't spoil it. Their relationship progresses throughout the different productions that we see on the BBC.
Wait, have I missed this? Oh.
Okay, so you need to, in order, watch Peter Pan Goes Wrong, and then watch Christmas Carol Goes Wrong.
Oh yes, I've remembered now. Yeah.
And then often in the Goes Wrong show, their characters are often played together, and paired together.
They're cute, but Sandra's fab, isn't she?
Oh yeah, she again. She's another one who thinks she's the best actor or the best actress, and she's often the lead actress in a lot of their productions.
Yeah. Who else is there, Ross?
Well, next up, playing the Manuel character, if we're looking at this through a Fawlty Towers lens, is Dennis. Who is an idiot.
Just your classic idiot.
He has terrible stage fright. He can't learn his lines.
He repeats everything he says.
He's often multicast in kind of all the small bits, but he gets his characters mixed up.
In the Nativity, he is a shepherd, a wise man, an innkeeper, and a chorister.
Yes.
Which has actually been cut from the show, and he seems to have forgotten that. But yes,
Yeah, old Dennis. And I keep talking about Peter Pan Goes Wrong and the other productions, but one of the most memorable moments is he plays John in Peter Pan Goes Wrong, as well as a few other characters, and he has a headset to feed him his lines.
Yeah, that's fine.
And there's a moment where it tunes into other radio stations and he starts singing with stuff he says, it's just so funny.
I'm so looking forward to watching it. It's going to be great, yeah.
When A Christmas Carol Goes Wrong, he's got the script written on props all over
the
stage.
Yes, he does.
He does. Yeah.
Oh.
And I think they've solved it in Nativity Goes Wrong in that he doesn't have many lines. At all, and he's got the director right by him when he does, and he still gets it wrong.
Yeah, you're an innkeeper. Switch on.
Joining Dennis as a shepherd and a wise man is Vanessa and Annie, who also play the front and back half of the donkey,
and also the back and back of the donkey,
and the front and
also the front and front of the donkey. Vanessa's thing is that she's got low confidence. And Annie's thing is that she began as a stagehand, but then develops into an actor. And actually, the actress who plays Annie does a great turn as Tinkerbell in Peter Pan Goes Wrong. You'll love that, Ruthie. Because Tinkerbell doesn't speak, she has to do everything through mime and body language and dance.
Great.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
She was really good in the pilot, which is not the pilot, but it's about a pilot. Where she plays a kind of love interest for... Is it Vanessa? Did you say who's the other actor?
No, she's a love interest for Sandra's character. Because she plays a colonel, or that guy, as a stand-in for a male actor who couldn't be there.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's a fantastic scene where they have
a body double.
Meant to take his shirt off and they have a body double, and it's just so well done.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Oh.
She's great.
So Annie often gets hurt during performances, and she often plays younger characters.
Yeah.
She often gets cast as children or younger characters, and she often kind of doesn't when things go wrong, she tends to panic a bit. And she does this fantastic thing. She tries to speak to people with her eyes, and kind of you see this kind of no, I don't want to do this kind of come on her face. Vanessa is a newer addition, to the group, and I think is one of the better actors fictionally.
Yeah, she's fantastic. She's really good at kind of rolling with it, isn't she? So it manages to stay sort of in character a bit better, and will adapt to things that are going on.
Yeah, but she's often paired with Dennis.
Yeah.
And you see her gradually kind of lose a plot and panic more and more as things go wrong.
She spends more time
because
with
of
Dennis.
She's and the real life actress is very good at doing the physical kind of stunts of pratfalls. So often her character, if her character's in the background, will get hit in the head or fall over, get knocked unconscious.
I don't know whether it is Vanessa or whether it is Sandra, but there's a brilliant murder mystery goes wrong
with the body.
Robert comes in with flings the door open and knocks out one of the other actors on stage, and it's either I think it's either Sandra or Vanessa.
I think that's Sandra from the play that goes wrong.
And it's just it's very funny again. The whole pratfalls. Anyway, 2 more actors in the Cornley Polytechnic Drama Society. There is Jonathan, who plays Herod. He's very unlucky. As mentioned already, a spinning throne strips him of his costume live on stage.
Yeah.
The kind of stuff I used to have theatre anxiety dreams
about. No one wants to be nude on stage.
And then there is Trevor, who is the stage manager, who has to deal with all of the stuff that's going wrong as fires start, as the set falls down, as tech goes wrong.
And often he'll get in arguments with the BBC's backstage department as well. And there's kind of a bit of rivalry there. And very occasionally he then also plays extra characters in the plays as well.
Yeah.
And he is completely out of his element. So and that's really funny. There's one which is meant to be kind of not a Shakespeare play.
Oh yeah.
And just the way he speaks the iambic pentameter, he goes da 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 da. That particular play is really good as well. There's a brilliant moment between Vanessa and Dennis in that Shakespeare one as well.
So I think it's clear that we've watched quite a lot of this. We know the kind of background, and we decided to watch this. Particularly the Nativity one, because we wanted to talk about Nativity Plays and Nativity Plays in general.
And we actually had a bit of our own goes wrong moment with this, because we were initially going to watch the 2009 film Nativity.
Yes.
But it wasn't available anyway.
Well, I do have the DVD.
It's not online.
Not online, but I do have the DVD. So we watched this, and I'm so glad we did, because it was half an hour watch, and it's just cracking. So let's go back to our childhood in the most helpful way, and not bringing up trauma way. But have we, I'm assuming we've all been in Nativity Plays and
Yes.
done various different characters. Can we think of one character that we played in a Nativity Play that we are particularly proud of?
I was nearly always cast as Gabriel.
Were you?
I was more blonde as a child.
Yeah, it's always the blonde child who does Gabriel.
Mm.
I was a wise man. I had a lovely blue velvet cloak as a wise man. But actually, in terms of nativities going wrong, it was when I was cast as a shepherd at playgroup. And I came out and stood on the stage. My mum was so proud and had the video camcorder recording.
Oh.
And I saw the audience and I sat down by the door and didn't do anything. I did not want to be on stage. I got the stage fright.
Oh, bless you. I think...
And look at me now.
I know.
A show off supreme.
I think one of my most memorable ones was I played an owl in the Nativity Play once. It's all getting a bit lobster from Love Actually, but I was the owl because me and the other owl were the narrators, and so it was like we were above in the stable looking and telling the story. Yes.
Oh golly. Oh
Yes.
golly.
I know, get ready, Ross. We're about to unleash Ross on his tirade. But going with the Goes Wrong theme as well. We've heard about Ross having a stage fright disaster. Have we experienced many other disasters in Nativity Plays that either we've been in or we've been involved in putting on?
Yeah, so the first year I was here in post, and we organised the crib service, which has a nativity, acted out nativity as part of it. And the little girl who I'd co-opted to play Mary, just at the moment where we were about to start with Mary in Nazareth, couldn't find her. She was in the toilet. So the whole service had to pause while we went and collected Mary. Because Mary needed a wee.
It does happen to pregnant women.
Yes,
it does happen to pregnant women.
It is true. When you have to go, you just have to go. Yeah. So that's understandable.
Or I had another year where Mary and Joseph refused to be within touching distance of each other. So it was like Mary and Joseph do not like each other.
They need some marriage counselling already. Yeah.
I mean, we can't talk about nativities that go wrong without touching base on the Revd Dibley nativity with its live birth.
Yes,
I mean, I know you've already done an episode about it, but...
Well, does it go wrong or does it go very right?
Well, it has its moments where it seems like it's going wrong, like such as David giving out sweets.
Kiss the children. Yeah, that doesn't go quite right. I love you, Herod. Yes. I've already told the story on the podcast before about, I believe, where I played Mary and it ended up with my brother playing Joseph after other children stepping back and deciding they did not want to be involved. So that's a disaster that we managed to work out in the end. I don't think I mean, we've had some weird stuff here, but nothing totally disastrous. I had a guinea pig in the stable, that well-known animal there at the nativity. Flapjack the guinea pig just hung around and was in the crib set that we had, and because it was all little figures, the guinea pig was a lot larger than the baby Jesus, but we rolled with it. It was great. Yeah.
And quite often, actually, that's what you do. Is not quite that things go wrong, but that you roll with it.
Yeah.
And there's certain ways which we mitigate the chaos of the crib service, because we're particularly talking about crib services here. It's more often that nativity plays are now done by the schools and the nurseries, and we do crib services. And a lot of the way we do that is we have a narrator who tells the story, and then the children act it out.
Follow along.
Occasionally with lines, but not always. And there's even some, you do something, Ruthie, which is very, very spontaneous, don't you?
Yeah,
sometimes.
I did it for the first time last year, and then we're doing it again, where we just did it on the spot, and I said, come dressed as anything. We had 3 Marys, and our Joseph was one of the Mary's granddads, and we just rolled with it, and it was absolutely terrifying the first time, because you think, if no one turns up, this is going to be an unmitigated disaster. This will be a goes wrong nativity play. But it went so blooming right, and it was one of the, like, when we were heading to Christmas, it was one of the things people in the village were saying, are we going to do that again, because we loved it so much. So yes, it goes wrong, but it goes right, and I don't care if Spider-Man comes to the nativity, he can be a shepherd, it's great.
Yeah.
Now, Ross, you have a particular bugbear with the nativity, and so now we've wound you up enough. Would you like to unleash how you feel about nativities in general?
Okay, so here's the thing, everybody. I'm slightly anti-nativity. And I know that I have just argued, we have recently argued that Die Hard is a nativity and whatnot. But the thing about the nativity is it's not in the Bible. The wise men were never there with the shepherds. There are no innkeepers in the Bible. There's no donkey in the Bible. Well, in the biblical story of the birth of Jesus. It's made up. And it's not that it's made up for a bad reason. It was made up by St. Francis as a way of engaging the community with the story of the birth of Christ. But I think that we have gone too far, that we have lost sight of the true spectacle of Christmas and ended up with this diluted fairy tale, which I don't think is necessarily always very helpful.
For those of you listening, Ross's angry eyebrows are on. If you think of Mr. Potato Head, where he has to pack his angry eyebrows, they are most certainly on.
Yeah. And I mean, so it's not necessarily that the elements of our nativity plays aren't in the Bible. They're just not all in the same place, and they're not all part of the same story.
Okay, so let's continue breaking this down. So what have we got? We've got 4 Gospels. Only 2 of them have a birth narrative. And
in Luke, Jesus just appears from the desert.
I think you mean Mark, darling.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mark. Sorry. In Mark.
Kate.
Mark doesn't care about the birth narrative. Mark just wants to get to business with the adult life and ministry of Jesus. Fair play to him. John takes a much more grand cosmological background with the Word became flesh, and that's a birth narrative, I suppose. But it's not. There's no story there. There's no Mary and Joseph and the wee little donkey.
It's the Word pitches his tent among us, and there we go.
Yeah.
We've then got Matthew. And Matthew gives us the story of the prophecy, the genealogy of Joseph, and kind of tells it from Joseph's perspective, and brings in the Magi from the East, who bring the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh.
But they don't come to infant Jesus, do they?
They come to Jesus when he's probably about 2 years old, toddling about. In Luke, you have the birth narrative from Mary's perspective. You have and the birth of John the Baptist as well, interestingly. And we have the Magnificat. We have these beautiful scenes between these 2 mothers, these 2 unlikely mothers. And we have the shepherds coming as well to see the newborn child. And one other thing. Well, not one other thing. There may be lots of other things. But another thing. The whole thing about a stable has gone way too far. We're looking... So much of our retellings are telling it through a sort of a medieval understanding of what ye olde times were like. And we think of a drafty stable out back.
With an open door.
Of an inn or tavern where there's not enough rooms in because we're thinking... like a bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
When actually, archaeologically speaking, the stable was a part of the house. People would bring in their animals into the lower part of the house where they would bring your radiators. They would heat up the cold house. And there are other Bible stories that support that within the Hebrew scriptures as well. And when we start to unpack the fact that there was no room for Mary to have a child in the upper room, the upstairs part of the house, so instead she was in the stable, it suggests that not so much that she and Joseph were all alone in a drafty stable, but rather Jesus was born into a house full of people, full of love, and actually the best way of giving a pregnant woman privacy while she's giving birth is in the stable away from everybody else. And that changes the story completely when we're telling a nativity fairy tale that suggests that Mary and Joseph were turned away from 3 inns until the innkeeper's wife decided to say, well, there is a stable out back. Actually, that's not scriptural. I think it matters.
Well,
I think it matters.
I came across something that was suggesting that actually, like you said, this kind of image of the different inns like bed and breakfasts is very false if we actually think more about the culture of the actual context rather than a medieval imagining. And that actually you're looking at the reason they're travelling is because they're going to the ancestral hometown of Joseph. So actually, he's staying with family. You know, everyone there they are all sort of related to each other. So it's less about there's no room at the inn. It's like you said, there's no room in the upstairs room, or it's a really crowded space because all the family are together. It's a big family reunion.
And I should say that it's a bad translation of the Greek that gives us the word inn rather than the word upper room.
So you've just said all this and said it matters, which I do agree with. So why do we do nativity plays as we have done them, and what actually does matter? What do we need to make sure is a key part of our nativity plays?
To slightly reword the question, why do we do nativities wrong?
I see what you did there.
Yeah. I'm doing a bit of an experiment this year, and it's something I've wanted to do for a little while. I'm in charge of the cathedral sort of family crib service, and we are going scriptural. And I have cast 4 evangelists to be Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John to tell the story using verbatim text from scripture. Now, Mark obviously has nothing to say, so that's going to be our choir director for the junior and youth choir. So it's like, well, Mark doesn't care about this, so you do the music. But weaving together John and Luke and Matthew's accounts into a way that tells the story. And that's been a really interesting exercise to do. What we start with is John with this idea of light in the darkness. And then we see the light becoming, coming into the world. And there's a simplicity about the story. There's a beauty about it. It doesn't need a lot of extra trappings, which we want to give it. And I'm a theatre nerd. I could do the things that, Robert, when he's playing Gabriel in The Nativity Goes Wrong, he wants more fireworks. And I want a smoke machine at Christmas. I want all the glitz and the glam as well.
Yeah.
But to punctuate and to highlight the reverence of the moment of here, Mary gave birth to her child, the Word became flesh. So that's what's getting me excited this Christmas as I play around with telling this story afresh and kind of letting go of the idea that you've got to have an ox and an innkeeper and all of that. Actually, what do we need? We just need to tell a good story simply and beautifully.
Yeah.
Obviously, I can't get rid of the donkey because that's a tradition, so I've turned that into a joke. Who invited a donkey?
Right.
Kind of a vibe.
And I think that is an incredible idea. that only works if you're somewhere like a cathedral. Because on a parish level, particularly in smaller communities and more rural communities, the sense of tradition, cultural tradition associated with the crib service and the nativity play is so strong sometimes that if you do not include the characters who shouldn't be there, people get upset.
Yeah.
You know, and people really, you know, if you do something that deviates too much from the beloved traditions, it can cause a lot of upset.
And I think for schools doing nativity plays, having bonus characters like the wise folk appearing early and the innkeepers, if you have 3 of each, then that's another 6 children that you can go, you've got a part and you've got a part, before you have to add in the lobster and all these different things. And
plus the camels for the wise people.
My son was a camel last year. It was great. The first nativity play he did with the school, and the first song, the camels went rogue and danced all the way around the stage. And it's those kind of things that people remember and love. And so actually, I genuinely do really admire what you're doing, Ross. And I would love to see your script, definitely, because it sounds absolutely fascinating. And we had this debate last year with the script that we were using, because it referred to the wise men as stargazers, which is more accurate, but are people going to know who that is? And so we used stargazers, but we also referred to them as the magi, the wise men, at the beginning, so that people would know this is who we're on about.
Yeah.
And I will absolutely concede that context matters.
Oh, yeah.
You need to know your communities so that when you are doing storytelling with them, you're bringing them with you.
Yeah.
And if you are going to be making those changes, making sure that you are able to do so in a kind and kind of fun way, I think.
Yeah.
So this, because the wise men, however many of them there were, weren't at the birth. I'm kicking them out from Christmas Eve. They're not going to be there.
Epiphany. Yeah.
They're going to get their own Epiphany pageant play in January. And inviting people to that and saying, yeah, we're going to come back to them later. But come back in January and we'll do a whole new thing where we get to reflect on a whole new aspect of what it means for Christ to be born.
Yeah. Which is brilliant. And I love it so much. I wish I could do it. In defence of the conflated nativity, the wrong nativity, which, I mean, I agree with everything you say, Ross. I really do.
Well, I'm always right.
Because you're always right. In its defence, I think what the nativity as we know it does, as the nativity play as we know it does, is really good at summarising some of the key points from the different narratives about Jesus without confusing, particularly for children, or if we think about historical context, people who might have been illiterate. And actually saying, rather than telling you lots of different stories and confusing you, we're going to bring in the key elements so that you know the headlines of what's important to know.
I really love that point about scriptural illiteracy. And actually, there is a privilege in us being as scripturally literate as we can be today. And I think there's a responsibility with that literacy that we may have never really properly grasped with, because, you know, the nativity was created nearly 1,000 years ago, and actually the world and our engagement with how we do tell stories and these holy sacred stories has changed massively.
Yeah. I'm talking about biblical literacy. I did a whole assembly about angels at one of the church school that I had, and told them about what angels. I talked about biblically accurate angels and what do angels actually look like. So I'm really curious this year if anyone comes dressed as an angel, will they come as a circle with lots of eyes and things like that? Or will they come as a human figure, maybe with a tinsel halo, because let's not get rid of the classics, but will they have wings or not?
Halo!
Hello!
Hello!
Hiya!
But yeah, I'm curious about that and whether that will happen. So Ross, you talked at the beginning about it being St. Francis, we think, who did this nativity play and added this in and did it as a kind of a bit of a fresh expression of, here's the story of Christmas, here's a way we do it. So what do we think then of these characters that we've added? What kind of fresh expressions of nativity have we encountered, and what have been good and what haven't worked, and all this kind of stuff?
So I need to go back to one of my earliest memories of something different in a nativity, which is my dad, and it was at a crib service or a carol service or something. I was probably about 7, 8 years old, and he bought a Shaun the Sheep hot water bottle and hot water bottle cover.
I think my dad did something
which eventually
like that.
became mine, and I still have it. So I'm always reminded of it. And he did Shaun the Sheep's version of the Nativity Story. And that will always stick with me. I love it.
My brain went to a very dark place where you put, instead of having water in the hot water bottle, you put red wine, and then you do a whole thing about the blood of the lamb who was slain.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
it was just Shaun the Sheep kind of being in the field with the shepherds and learning about nativity and then going to the stable.
Oh, that's cute. I think it's quite a popular trope, isn't it, doing it from the animal's perspective. That actually, because all those animals are in those stables, aren't they, Ross? And using it from their perspective to be a narrator looking in at what's going on, and also as a load more characters for any primary schools trying to cast everyone with a significant role.
In my parish in Reading, we had Thomas the Cat's Christmas special, and it was each year we would tell a Thomas the Cat story in the stable, and it was we didn't have the resources to do a full on nativity with a Mary and a Joseph and people turning up to play all of those characters, but we had we were able to tell a nice story with Thomas the Cat, and my church warden made a donkey out of an old dressing gown. That was Delilah the donkey, and we had Thomas the Cat, who was made out of an old orange blanket or something. I mean, it was really beautiful, and actually I really enjoyed doing that, and that was part of their Christmas tradition of storytelling in a theatrical way.
You've made me just think, I have got a grey dressing gown. I'll get some donkey ears. Boom. Can have that as a spare costume. Thank you very much.
I first year I was here, I went to charity shops and I bought a whole load of stuff which I could alter into Bible costumes, because I use them for assemblies as well. So things like men's check shirts, which I took the collars and sleeves off to become kind of makeshift tunics.
Cute.
Yeah, so that was a side note. Every year the Bible Society, which is a charity called the Bible Society, they do Christmas resources which all tie together. So they do a nativity script, and they do
a book,
kind of little nativity books as well, which you can
ordered
give
mine.
out. And this year Yeah, I'm ordering mine. This year the story is about a star, and it's the Star of Bethlehem, I think, and how the star observes the nativity and guides the wise man to the stable.
Great. I just ordered them through a friend, and that's really, really helpful. Oh, that's really good. I like that, because I have a star costume.
So I'm holding my breath.
Yeah, I do Christmas activity bags for the children in my parishes, and because of this I'm doing all the crafts are going to be star themed. Nice. I've decided to try and tie it all in, so I've used the same script the past 3 years for nativity, but I might adapt the Bible Society one. The Bible Society, they tend to give speaking parts to the actors, which just doesn't work in my context.
Okay.
So
we've recommended the Bible Society. What are some other versions of the Nativity that we enjoy and would like to share with people? Russ, why don't you start?
So, although I am grumpy and have been anti-nativity all episode, there are some good nativities out there. There's a really lovely BBC adaptation. I think it's from 2008. It's got Tatiana Maslany cast as Mary, who some of you will know as She-Hulk, and
someone new from Orphan Black.
And Orphan Black. So I would recommend that. It's very much the traditional nativity story rather than the biblical story, but it is done beautifully, and so I would recommend that. In terms of books, I really love Jostein Gaarder's The Christmas Mystery.
So good.
And it does a really wonderful job of telling an enchanting story of a relationship between a boy and this story that that unfolds as he opens up a magic advent calendar.
Yeah.
And behind each door, there is a new character who joins this pilgrimage on the way from somewhere in Scandinavia. I can't remember which country it is. I want to say Sweden, but it might be Norway. Making their way across Europe and back in time to be at the stable in Bethlehem for
it
the
is
birth.
So beautiful, so good. I actually did one of my Advent illustrations of a previous year was that book, and I illustrated a section of it each day.
I've done it as a Advent group, kind of a course thing. And
it's really lovely.
What about you, Kate? What do you recommend?
So firstly, I need to recommend Bob Hartman's.
Yes!
He has a line storyteller Bible, but he also has a Christmas book as well. And if your resources are really quite low, then the storytelling aspect, he does it really well. And there's occasionally bits you want to maybe swap a little bit of a language, but it's just very good storytelling. It's what I use for assemblies. I'll pick up a couple of kids, give them some costumes, and they're really happy to act out without much direction. Love it. And there's often a section in the back of the book as well with, if you want to get your audience involved, here's some tips for storytelling. And that's also what Open the Book, which is a charity in the UK, they base their work on. They go into schools to do Bible storytelling. But I wanted to tell you about a story which we had in my childhood as a book that my mum had, which she kind of read with us, and it's called Babushka. And this particular version is a traditional Russian folktale, but this particular version is retold by Arthur Scoley, and it's a lion storybook. And it's about this Russian woman who is a widow and who has lost a child previously, and she has kept all the toys and she still makes toys. That's how she grieves for this child. And the wise men stop by her house on their journey from the east, and to rest with her, and they tell her about what they're doing, and then they leave after staying the night. And the next day she is so inspired and she wants to go to this Christ child, and she gathers up all the toys in her house and takes them with her to take them to a Christ child, because every child needs toys. Because she said these wise men were giving them gold, frankincense and myrrh. The child needs toys. And the Russian folktale is that instead of St. Nicholas, Santa Claus, bringing the toys on Christmas Eve, it's Babushka, who on her journey to see the Christ child leaves toys in the houses of every child that she passes. And I really love it. And there's a song in this particular book that goes with it, which you sing as you tell the story, which is, Babushka, oh babushka, why have you come so far? Babushka, oh babushka, we're following the star. And it's just stuck with me, and I love it so much. But it's not one I could really use in parish, because it would be confusing for children.
I remember Babushka from when I was probably not much older than when I had stage fright and didn't go on stage. And hearing the story of Babushka and being a bit confused about how it fitted in.
Yeah.
And I there's a lot of lovely mythology and folk tales that have developed. I mean, even the fact that we've got names for 3 kings or 3 wise men is not in the Bible, but actually they can draw us towards beauty and truth.
Definitely, yeah.
Even if it's not fact, if that makes sense.
And it's that invitation of how we relate to. So what I like about Babushka and the song Little Drummer Boy as well, it's this kind of inviting us to take part in the story and think about what we will bring. So the little drummer boy brings his music.
Oh, yeah.
For the baby, Babushka brings the toys for the baby. And I really like that aspect, is thinking about not just what Jesus brings to us at Christmas, but what we bring to Jesus and other people that we share along that journey. What about you, Ruthie?
My recommendations are one that Ross, you're immediately going to get cross about because it's told from the innkeeper's perspective. And it's,
What?
I know, outrageous, isn't it? It's called Jesus' Christmas Party. And I suspect you might know this. It's by Nicholas Allen. And the innkeeper is the Scrooge kind of character who just wants a good night's sleep. And then all these people keep knocking on his door and they're looking for a baby and all this kind of stuff. And suddenly all these angels are singing and he's like, right, that's it. And he goes round to see what's going on and then sees the Christ child and immediately changes and is just overwhelmed with this baby that's appeared. So it's a really, really lovely one, and he just keeps shouting round the back at the people coming round. So that's a really good one. And then also, it's not a nativity book per se, but there's an author called Gervais Finn, and he was a school inspector in Yorkshire, so in the kind of Yorkshire Moors area. And he writes these books of the tales of going to schools and the kind of things that the kids say and stuff like that. And he's got a really beautiful story in one of his books about a nativity play. And he goes to see this nativity play. The teacher's really, really thrilled and you know, has worked really hard on it and done all these different things and made sure the costumes are amazing and all that kind of stuff. And he could see her getting more and more frazzled. And then one of the wise men comes in and completely forgets his line. It's like a play that goes wrong and totally forgets it, and she's like pulling her hair out and that kind of thing. And the wise man goes up to the crib and can't think of anything to say, but then he can't think of his line, and so instead he says, don't he look like his dad? And I think that is such a beautiful... I know my dad's used it in sermons, and I have as well, that actually that is just the incarnation. Like, this is Jesus who looks just like his dad. And I think that's a really, really lovely story. There you go.
That's lovely.
So we've talked about lots of things to do with nativity. We've let Ross loose with the good things about nativity and the bad. And so we hope you've enjoyed this discussion. If you have the chance to watch the Goes Wrong play of the Nativity, it is absolutely fantastic. Go and watch it. Enjoy the slapstick joy of it. But also, go and find your own nativity play to go see. Your local churches will be doing something like this. It might be called a crib service. It might be called a nativity. And see if you can come back with some stories of how their nativities have gone wrong. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Vicars Watch Dibley. Thank you to Nat for editing our ramblings.
Any opinions expressed are our own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Church of England or any other organisation with which we are affiliated.
If you like our podcast, leave us a review, follow us on social media and share it with your friends. And, as always, bless you for listening.
What did one angel say to the other?
I don't know. What did one angel say to another?
Hello there.
Hello.
Hello there.
Hello.
Hello.